Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about what I would consider the 3 to 5 CSS tricks every SharePoint developer should know. And basically, this is going to help you out when dealing with responsive design and dynamic content as we do in SharePoint. And we saw in our last video, though we were able to easily display the latest blog posts because of the mix of type of content where we had, titles that were just a single line, descriptions that were not very populated or very brief. And as you can see here, things get ununiform very quickly. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to leverage this video to talk about these 4 to 5 CSS tricks, how to apply them, and that way you can keep moving and not be blocked by because we're waiting on the designer to make things nice and pretty. And hopefully these tricks, as you will see, that these tricks are safe and keep things responsive and you don't lock things in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So as you can see on my screen, we have these 5 items here, and things are kind of blown out of proportion. And what I like to do, and obviously I'm in Chrome because I prefer the developer tools in Chrome. I'm gonna just go ahead and do inspect on this guy. So the first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and get this gray background lined up with the actual image. And I do that just going by inspect, and that lands me right where that content is. And as I kind of mouse over the different HTML snippets, it will let me know in the browser which one that I'm actually affecting. So if I look at the div with the matter class, that's the one that needs some help. So what we're going to do a min height on this guy. This is our one of our tricks, and basically just tell it that at a minimum this height should be, and let's play around here. Let's just start with 200 pixels. And I'm just using the up and down arrow key. And as you can see, I can affect the height and really see the adjustments real time. That really just saves me a lot from having to go back and forth within Studio, make the adjustment, publish, and see if it's right or not. You can get this thing pixel perfect right here in the browser. Okay, so let's just leave that. So that's 191. That's going to be the height for this class. And let's go ahead and move on to our... Now that that's looking good, let's go ahead and move over to our title. So our title should have enough space to accommodate 2 lines, but then again, a minimum space to accommodate a single line and still keep things uniform. So let's just do the same trick. Right click, go to inspect. That's going to be this H1 tag. So we go to the H1, and right here in the browser, I can set a min height or max height. But the problem is I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to determine how much of this space is dedicated to the H1 tag versus the other tags with wrapped in within this div. So as I mentioned before, to turn on the headlights, I'm just going to go to set a fictitious border solid, and then that just helps me get a better sense of how much area or how much real estate this title tag is going to take. And once I have that, now I can get a better sense of what my min height should be for this tag. And let's just start out with 30 pixels, and then I'm going to just use the up arrow key to adjust this. And basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep adjusting it, and my guidance is this guy here, because our max is two lines. And I just want to use this, like, as long as I'm hitting 2 lines and this thing is not going above that, I think I'm good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that in at 43. Now, the other thing we want to do, now that's the min height. Now we want to confirm and test the max height. And basically, in the dev tools, I can just go here and adjust this HTML on the fly, get a lot of text in there. And now I can see what my max height, how this kind of gets blown out of proportion when I have more than 2 lines. So I go back to this H1 tag, and I have the min height there, and let's just go ahead and set the max height as a baseline to 43 pixels, which is the same as the min. Okay, so that seems to be fine, but as you can see, even though I have a min height and my border tells me where this guy is stopping, and I still have text bleeding past that. So the other trick that we need to use is called the overflow. Now this overflow, you have a X and Y coordinate. So X is going to be every horizontal, it'll affect the width, and Y will affect the height, so vertical. And this is what we need in our case. So we need the Y, and we want to set that to hidden. And that crops, what that's going to do, that's actually going to crop all that other text, that title text, from being displayed in this view. Okay, so far we're good there. So we have the min height, max height, and if I scroll down, I think everything is uniform with the exception of the description. And with the description, let me just take this big one here. We're going to apply the same trick. So in this description, here's the P tag. And in the P tag, you want to make sure that you are in the right definition, right? So this P tag has two definitions. You have the global paragraph styling, which is setting a default top right bottom margin of 10 pixels. And then you have the one that's only affected by the block container. And this is the one that we actually want to go after. So in this one, we just want to do the same trick. Let's just set a max height. And let's just start off with 30. And this is going to be too aggressive. But I do want to turn on my overflow Y, so that way I can get a better sense of how much I'm affecting. And actually, you want to turn on the overflow so that way when you start cropping, you get a sense of how it will look. So we have a really good sample here on descriptions that are over the boundaries and descriptions that are under the boundaries. So let's go ahead and let's just crop this. How much real estate do we have? So if we do 4 lines, our gray background goes beyond the image, and we want things lined up. So I think we're going to be limited to 3 lines of description, which is there. But even then, that starts to... Okay, so we probably have to play with another adjustment here. So let's go 3 lines. And then I think one of the other pieces that we can adjust is the margin between the title and the description. So let's max this at 61 pixels, which is 3 lines. And we also need to set our min. So the trick is to set a max and the min. That just kind of keeps everything in the pocket. And I'm going to just turn on the borders here so I can kind of get a sense of what's going on. Go up here to this guy where I have less than 3 lines. And to make this uniform, what we want to do is just go ahead and kick this out to, let's just set the min height to 61. That's a baseline. So height, there we go. And then 61 pixels. Okay. And now everything is, we're still beyond the image, which is fine by a few pixels, but we're uniform, so we're consistently beyond the image, which is a really good thing. And now what I'm going to do, let's trim off some of this this margin off of the title. So let me just go to the H1 tag here and make, again, anything that we affect, we want to make sure that we're within the block container. And the margin here is top, right, bottom. That's how I remember. I have to go through the motion, and it's clockwise starting at 12 o'clock. So top, right, bottom, 21 pixels. Again, just use your arrow key. Get this thing lined up to where you need to be. And I think 13 pixels is going to be the trick. Okay. And as now we made all our adjustments, let's go and turn off some of our borders, right? We don't need these borders. That was really just for testing. And sometimes our borders add in additional pixels. So you definitely want to turn those off to make sure that if there's any other fine-tuning adjustments that are needed, we can go through and make those adjustments. It seems like for this guy here with the title, we probably need to adjust our min height a little bit. No, I'm sorry, our max height. Seems like you have to do both. Mix. All right, so maybe 41 is probably a better setting. And again, that was hidden because we had those borders turned on, and each border was adding extra pixel to the top and bottom. So now that we have everything off, everything looks great. And now we want to do our responsive design test. And as we go in, you can see at this step, it's kind of hard to, let's minimize this just a little bit. So at the widescreen step, the full resolution step, we seem to be fine. And then now at this step here, we seem to be fine. And this designer has several media query steps within the design, which is okay. And then now we get down to the last, which I think is like small. And then here we're still true. Now the only step that we probably run into an issue is this guy here, where you can see this is bleeding over a little bit. So we can adjust that. But one of the things I do want to point out now that we're doing the steps, because the changes we made were at the full resolution or the full width. And as you can see, with this ampersand sign media, these are called media queries. And as you kind of scroll through this, you will notice that the media query changes depending on the viewport size that we are adjusting to in the browser. And this is key. That's really the magic behind the responsive design, is that within these different max media viewports, you can have different stylings to best fit that viewport. And, when you get to devices, so now, in a high-res desktop view, this is what we're looking like. But then when you get to like a tablet horizontal, and then maybe a tablet vertical, and then a mobile phone vertical, these are the different steps that normally you try to accommodate for. But the designer figured all this stuff out. This is not something we need to be too concerned with as far as the steps. But when styling, you definitely need to understand what's going on, because all of the styles that we applied so far have been at the max width, where we do not have a media query attribute above our styles. But then when we get down to this guy here, where we actually need to affect this extra spacing here that's blowing the gray background beyond the image, that's the one that is at the 1,000 media query or 1,000 width step. And this is where we actually need to make one more slight adjustment. So, but before we do that, I have a lot of changes pending here. If I hit refresh, all my changes go away. So what I want to do is go through and capture all of these changes and actually dump them into Visual Studio so they're saved. So right now we have the matter class. This is the gray background. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy this guy and then go into my project. And within our project, you know that all of the styles given to us by the designer, we dumped into this design folder. And this style CSS is where all of the custom styles for that design lives. Now, as we mentioned before, as we were setting up our master page and everything like that, we do not want to modify this style.css, because you kind of break the workflow when you do that. You create a two-way workflow when the designers start making changes. So ideally, in most projects, what's going to happen is that the designer will still be working with the business, and they may be making different adjustments and colors and things along those lines. But because we set this up with a clear separation of presentation and business logic and back end and all this other good stuff, we do not want to inject our pieces that are platform specific into the overall design package. So what we've done, if you remember, this is where SP Overwrite CSS kicks in. And this serves a dual purpose. So the first one is to do exactly what we've done, where we have to make adjustments on the fly to make the design fit well and work well within SharePoint. The other piece, and this is more responsive design and dynamic content, right? These are the adjustments that are needed for that. Ideally, you should not have to make these, but in the event that you are stuck with this type of task, we have the tools to make this happen. The other piece is, the other reason why you need this SP overwrite.css is when we have the ribbon, the edit mode, and when we go to actually manage pages within SharePoint, there may be certain aspects within SharePoint and its out-of-the-box CSS that may be conflicting with what the designer had in place. So that's the second purpose of that. So we keep our changes separate. So as a designer come in with new changes and packages, we can easily just blindly drop those in this design folder, and all the overwrites in Bootstrap, CSS, Font Awesome, and so on and so forth. Any changes within that directory will be updated. We don't have to do like a delta or anything like that. We can just blindly drop those in and we're good to go. And then our overwrite CSS, those will remain intact. Those will not be overwritten because a designer will not have this file. This is a SharePoint only file. Okay, so enough on that. Let's go ahead and capture all of our changes. So that was the matter. Let's go ahead and capture the changes we did for the H1 tag. And let's just go in and copy this guy. And I'm actually been kind of lazy where I am not actually duplicating a lot of this. Ideally, what you want to do, actually, let's just do that. Anything that we change, we actually want to bring in. Because what's going to happen is that the designer may come in and say, oh, that was the wrong gray for the matter class, and let me adjust that gray. Because we're defining this in our local, we will actually overwrite any adjustments that are made, and it becomes, what happened? How come this is not being applied? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and delete everything that's outside of our, let me do a Control KD here. I'm going to delete anything that's outside of our overflow and responsive design for dynamic content changes. Let's just focus on those changes because those are the true overrides. So let's go. So that was our title. Let's go ahead and do the guide for description, which is this P tag here. I think there's an easy way to copy this. If you right click, let's see, if you right, I thought there was a way that you can right click and just say copy style definition or something like that. Anyway, but this highlight and copy is working. Okay, so let's get rid of this. All our overflow min max stuff is us. Everything else is managed by the designer. And let's go, what else? So we did title, we did description, we did the background. I think that was it, right? Yeah. Okay. So now what we would do, let's go ahead and push this up. Let's right click, publish this out. And again, if you run into an error here, just make sure that you have an instance of Window Explorer view for this style library running. So that way you can get authenticated, or else you get access denied. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit refresh here. And I think we got all of our changes. Nope, we missed one. We missed one. Oh, I think we did two. I think we took out too much for our margin, right, for our title. That was one adjustment that we did make, and that was the margin bottom 21 for the H1 tag. And again, because we're only concerned with the margin bottom, I'm pulling that out from the general styling class for all the margins here. Again, just leaving room for the designer to adjust those, and we're just going to lock in the bottom margin. Okay, so hit refresh. Oh, I have to publish this out first. 1 second. So get that pushed up. Come here, hit refresh, and I think that should do the trick. I think we should be good to go now. Nope. No, it was something else, wasn't it? It wasn't 21. We changed it from 21. It was 16. because when I hit refresh, it reverted back to its original state, and we lost all our changes. So, all right, so this should be good now. All right, so now let's just confirm. Okay, so now we're good, and now let's take a look at this step here. Now this is the step. Wow, it seemed like it got worse. This is, ugh, what happened? Seems a lot bigger than what we had initially, right? All right, so this is the step to where things, oh, it seems like our minimum is really high for this step. And so if we look at the matters class, again, that's the container, you will see that now we have the media query attribute above our style, which says that only apply this style when the max width is 1,000. Anything over 1,000 is going to look at a different styling. So because our min height is 144, that is being overridden by this guy. Why? Oh, because we have to redefine. It's our CSS that's kicking in, that's overriding us. So what we have to do now is that min 44. So if we turn this off, what should it be? It seems like min 44 still may be too high, maybe. I'm trying to think of the best way to make this adjustment. Now we can take off, maybe let's do the min 44. So let's go ahead and grab this guy. Let's copy this over. And again, we just want to do our min 44, so we just want to enforce that. So this guy here, right? And this should be a new line. And I'm still getting green squigglies for some reason. Control KD. Why? What's going on? Expected brackets. For media? All right, let's push this up and see if we actually break this thing. Okay. Let's hit refresh here. Okay, so that's not affecting it. Oh. So this needs to be wrapped in curly brackets. Then the definitions within that, because this is a subset of that media query. So let's save this. Let's push this up. And then go hit refresh here. Okay, so that's going to get us close to where we need to be, but still, we're still busting the stitches with the gray bar, the gray background getting beyond the image. So I think there's a lot of margin here. So maybe if we kill the margin in the title only for this step, for the 1,000 width step, and to do that, let's the margin bottom, and then so we have to turn this off. So we have to turn off the global so we can actually see what it should be. And if we shrink this up to, oh, actually, if you take it off, so if the margin bottom is 0, I think that gets us where we need to be. So we either can do the margin bottom 0, or we can chop this off instead of displaying 5 lines to display, yeah, let's just do 5 line. Let's just do margin 0. But the other option you have is maybe just chop this up from displaying 5 lines in the description to 4, and you know how to do that. So we just have the adjustments for there. You just have to do it for the max width 1,000 step. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and just grab this guy here. Go back to our style. And actually what we can do, we can share this media query for 1,000 because that's the same. And then just put our H1 definition inside of that. So let's go ahead and we did that, right? So delete all this other noise. Okay, so that's the gray background. This is the title. And basically what we want to do is set the margin bottom to 0. Again, we're being very pointed with our changes. So even though there's a definition for all the margin, we know we only want to affect the bottom one. So let's go ahead and adjust only the bottom one within our overwrite file. Okay, so let's push this up, hit refresh, and I think we should be, hopefully that should do the trick. All right, so we go down here. Okay, so we're good there. We go expand. This stuff is still intact, right? Because we're at that step, we make sure that the media query was at 1,000. And then if we go into mobile, we're good to go outside of these pixelated images, right? So this is the other piece that we have to adjust, is the pixelated images. And we talked about this in our last video. And we had one that was somewhat high res, not too high res, but somewhat high res. But because of the max width, we did not get what we were looking for. So let's go ahead and adjust that really quickly, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up this video. So we go into the image renditions. Right now we're at that 229/191. I still have this up, the aspect ratio, and if I want to, let's say we wanted to do a 750 by 626. Again, this is all about maintaining the aspect ratio, not necessarily the exact width and height. You can go as high as you want within reason, right, without degrading or having an impact on performance. Let's just do 7, but as long as the ratios are the same, you know, you can do whatever size that you want. So let's do 750 by 626. And what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and create a new guy. Let's just call this JP Portal, and I have it there, medium, 720 by 626. Is that right? 750 by 626. Let's go ahead and save this all. And now we have this new image ID of 7. Oh, I created one and I deleted it because I was testing this out. That's why it's skipping 6. But now our ID is 7 for the medium size. And basically what you want to do is just go into your template, simply change the ID for a rendition from 5 to 7. Let's save this off, and then let's just push this up. Okay, and once that's up, let's go ahead and take a look at this in the browser. Hit refresh. Uh-oh. Did you fat finger something, Deshaun? No, here we go. Oh, it must still have been cropping. Okay, so this is blown way out of proportion. It seems to be actually sitting on top of our... All right, so now we're going to use the same trick that we used for the P tags, H1 tags. We're just going to apply it to the image tag. So now if we inspect the image tag, let's go ahead and make sure we get in the class and make sure that we're in the right definition for the image tag, which is in the block container. And let's just set a max width to let's try 292. I think it's 291 pixels, right? And this is going to get us where we need to be. Now our height, why is our height off? Our height is off. Oh, it's 229. That was the wrong width. Okay, so this is going to get us exactly where we need to be. So now we're at 229. We set the max width there. So regardless, again, aspect ratio is super important here. So as long as the aspect ratio is maintained, regardless of the height, as long as when you hit your max width, you're going to get what you're looking for. And as we shrink this, as we shrink this, everything looks good. And then in mobile view, we have to do an overwrite at this step. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and save off our definition for the image for the full screen style. And that's going to be this guy here. Now this is going to be outside of the 1,000 media query step. Let's remove the float from our definition. This is the only thing we want to impact. So, okay, so we set the max there, and we push this up, make sure we didn't screw anything up. And we go here, hit refresh. Good. So now we have a really nice resolution. It's not real high, right? So, but still nice, and everything's still working in all the steps except for this guy here. Now, in order to adjust this, now my developer tools are getting kind of crammed here, so I'm gonna pop this out in a new separate window, and now we can see exactly what's going on. We don't have to squinch and hurt our eyes to make this happen. So what's happening is now we're at the media step of 767, and the max, the width is 100%, but then we set the max to 229. So in order to handle this guy, our max width should say inherit, and if we turn this off just to see what it looks like in the browser, this is going to get what we need. So inherit just says, you know, there's no overwriting value for that in the CSS. Just inherit and let it do its natural thing. So let's just go ahead and copy this guy, and again, this is going to be in a different media query. So right now we have 1,000. So let's set up one for the 767 step. Put in our curly braces. Go here. Add the definition there. Remove everything except for max width. Okay. Save this off. Oops. Spell it right. Then save it off. Push it up. And now, as you will see, if we hit refresh here, at the mobile step, we're good. This step, we're good. The max res step, we're great. All right. So again, these are just different tricks that you should have up your sleeve or in your back pocket, so that way we can make these needed adjustments. We're dealing with responsive design and dynamic content, and you know, as you're testing, don't be like the designer. As you're testing, make sure you have a little bit of a nice mix of content that you're testing with, so that way you can catch a lot of these issues before you actually push in the QA or UAT or any higher environment. All right, so that's it for this video. Next video, we'll go ahead and continue on our journey with blowing out or building out the block feature. Okay, see you next time. Take care.